Hi, and welcome to the third tutorial in the series of free 3D Blender tutorials made possible by the Wayland Free Public Library. My name is Eric Carlsen, and we will be looking at the house again, this time adding even more details. So this is what we ended up at with the second tutorial. So we have a door, steps, garage, chimney with some detail there, and then we had a window here with shutters. And now over here, we're basically just going to look at adding a bay window and a dormer. So much like we see here, so we have a dormer that extrudes out, has that interesting shape there, and then the bay window. So these will introduce a couple additional tools and will give you some more things you can play with. So let's get started. So I'll do a new scene, and like always, select everything and then delete, enter. Okay, now add a cube. So real quick, I'm just going to set this up a little bit like we had before. So we'll go into edit mode, loop cut and slide, left click and then right click, edge, right click, left click on the arrow, and this is of course covered in more detail in the other tutorials. Right click, shift right click, lift that up. Okay, and then I'll make a chimney here. Just used a key command there for loop cut and slide, which is Control R, and I'm trying to make an effort not to use key commands in these tutorials just to make it easier to understand where they are relative to the interface. But certainly learning key commands on your own will help speed up your workflow, but I'm going to try and avoid that just for learning purposes here. Okay, now we have a chimney there, left click on face, right click on these guys, extrude region. So again, just quickly getting back to a starting point, kind of like where we were before. Okay, I think that's good for now. I just want to have the basic house shape in place. So let's start with a bay window. So for this, we'll make some cuts here. And in making this, for me, it was really helpful to see the reference. So again, knowing, all right, so you need a cut there, you need a cut there, and then this piece you can just kind of pull out, and you know, just looking back and forth at that definitely helps to figure out how to approach a task like this in 3D. All right, so we're going back, loop cut and slide. Okay, so those are the outer edges, left and right edges of our bay window. So now we'll loop cut and slide. And for these I'm just left clicking, not using any right click, because the right click will snap to the middle, so we want to have that control. So left clicking, and right about there. Good enough. And then we'll do a couple cuts for the top of it. So loop cut and slide, left click here. This will be our top edge. And here I'm not worried about that edge because we're not doing windows in this particular exercise, but if we were, we would want to do the technique discussed last time, which is S for scale, and then Z for the Z-axis, and then 0 on the numpad, enter, and then of course pull it down so that it's not doing any weird intersections like that. So that would give you a flat edge there. So we have that now, so we'll just work with that, but if you're just working on one side, you maybe don't need to worry about that so much. Okay, then we'll add one more cut, loop cut and slide, left click, and go about here. And actually, I'm going to bring that down a little bit. So we'll select all the faces that are important to the area we're working in and move them together. See, if we move them separately, then we wouldn't have an even edge here anymore, so we want to move them all together. And that was just by shift right-clicking through them. Okay, so now let's pull out this part. So left click here, right click, and because we already have these cuts here, we actually don't need to extrude. We basically just drag, and you see how that makes the shape that we want. So that's pretty good, I think. And now we have these weird faces here. So to get rid of these, we're going to right click on that and hit the delete key, and then left click on faces, and then same with over here. Delete faces. So now we're going to kind of rebuild this so we get the shape we want in there. So again, looking at this, so we need to have kind of a triangular cutout here, and then we need to have a triangular face there. So first we'll make a face right here. So left click on edges, right click, shift right click, and then mesh. This is a new tool, so mesh, faces, make edge or face. Great, so we have that. Right click, shift right click, mesh, faces, make edge or face. And so you'll see again here, this is the F key. So once you start to memorize these, that obviously would save you some time just to be able to hit the F key instead of going through here. Okay, so we have that, and then we just need to fill in this space. You can see there's a hole there. So select our boundary edges, and then mesh, faces, make edge or face, good. And then we have one more over here. Select all those edges, mesh, faces, make edge or face. Great. Okay, and let's say we want to have a little bit of a more of a substantial sort of mini roof over that bay window. So we'll just select those faces and drag down. You can change it however you want. Maybe we want this to be skinnier here. So to do that, we would hit S for scale, and it's actually already in the axis we need. So we just drag to where we want, and then left click. So you can make any kind of bay window you want, and I'll make one more tweak. I'll just make it go out a little further. So, you know, whatever you want to do. And I just I hit tab there, which gets you in and out of edit mode and object mode. So we'll stay in edit mode for now. All right, so now we're going to build a dormer up here. And so looking at that, we have this kind of shape. So we need to make a cutout in the roof and extrude this out, and then we'll have to use some other tricks to get the shapes we want here. And there will be just a couple more interesting triangular faces we'll have to put in there. So let's take a stab at it. So first, to get the right edge here, I'll reuse this edge here. So right click on that, then left click, and move it over. Yeah, this will be our dormer area. Okay, so we have the top edge already. Now we need to make a bottom edge. So we'll go to loop, cut, and slide, left click there, right about there. Good. Okay, now let's take our face and extrude it. So extrude, and it's going up in this direction, which is the direction it was facing. So we want it to go straight forward, so we see down here that that's x-axis. So we'll hit X. There we go. And you want to make it so the top edge of this is roughly lined up with this edge below. All right, so we'll go further on that. That's pretty good. So these are about lined up. So next step, we will go left click on this, vertex select. And so for this part, we're going to use the merge tool, which we discussed last time, but this time we're going to merge it to one of these points. So it'll be perfectly in line with that. If we used it center, it would just be somewhere around here. So we selected that one, shift, right click, we selected that one. So now we'll go to merge at last, so at the last one we selected. And there we go. So it brings it in. You have a nice, fairly straight line there based on wherever we drag that to. Okay. And now we'll go to this one, right click, shift, right click, and then merge at last. There we go. Starting to come together. Okay, next step, let's do our middle cut. So we'll do loop, cut, and slide, left click here, then right click, and that'll snap it to the middle. And then right click on that point, shift, right click on the other point, and lower it. So that'll be our that part of the shape. So that makes it a nice point at the top. Okay, now all of these faces will need to change. So let's delete those. So left click, right click on that, delete key, faces, and same with the rest of these. Delete faces, delete faces. Okay, now one other step is we also need a piece, a loop right here so that it can have something to connect to at this point. Because right now we just have an edge up here and an edge down at the bottom, so we need something kind of in the middle. So we'll go to loop, cut, and slide, left click, and then we'll just right click, just make it right in the middle. That lines up pretty well with where that is. Okay, now we'll use our fill tool again. So right click on that edge, right click, mesh, faces, make edge or face. Mesh, faces, make edge or face. So actually this is different than the fill tool, I guess. It's the make face tool. So actually for this part, I guess we need a triangle here. So we'll right click, shift right click, mesh, faces, make edge or face. Great. Do it on this side. Faces, make edge or face. Good. And then we'll connect these parts. Mesh, faces, make edge or face. Okay. And this is, let's see, just a little bit uneven here. And so it can be a little bit tricky dealing with this to get it exactly lined up. So we'll left click on that, get all these guys, and then just drag them forward a little bit just to get a little bit straighter. Here actually I'll quickly show you one of the view modes that can help you see this a little bit better. So if you go to your numpad and you hit 5, you'll see how that makes everything kind of a little bit distorted. So there's now no lens distortion, so everything is kind of the same no matter how you look at it. And then we will hit, let me just figure out which key exactly. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so we'll hit the 1 key, and that'll take us into a side view. And so if you play around with these numpad keys, you'll see they can do all kinds of different movements. Whenever you're done with that, and you start to rotate, if it still is in this kind of weird, like not really realistic view, you hit 5, and that'll take it back to perspective view. Now you see how the stuff closer to us becomes bigger, further away becomes smaller, so you get some actual perspective. And that's how I usually like to work. But if we go back to 1 and then hit 5, we have a nice flat view, which can be helpful to make sure things are lined up. And so the reason why I'm not scaling these with this piece is because by scaling that, then this roof will lose that even slope there. So in this case, it might be better just to zoom in a little bit and then just sort of adjust these as we go. And it looks like about there, so it's pretty straight now. Okay, so now we will rotate and then hit the 5 key. Now we're back in good old perspective mode. So there it is. So object mode, and then we will deselect just to be able to see it a little better. And there we have it. We built a bay window and a dormer. And so those tools, like filling in a hole there, can be very handy if you end up with a sort of weird face or you need to do some new cuts. They're all useful to know. And then I do recommend learning some hotkeys so that you can do those a lot quicker as you go, and it just makes it easier than having to find them through the menus. And if you want to learn more, you can go, there are many resources online. You can often Google whatever you're trying to do and you'll be able to find it. But if you go to Blender and scroll down, let's see. It's up here at the top. There we go. So you go to Support, and then Tutorials. And here you have a lot of new tutorials you can look at, a lot of nice topics covered here. And then beyond that, of course, there's a lot on YouTube and other areas. So I highly recommend looking at those if you're interested in learning more. So I hope this was helpful for you in learning some of the basics of Blender and 3D in general, and just keep at it, and the more you practice, the better you'll get. So thanks for joining us, and enjoy.